Thanks, Minister. So just an update on our most recent Omicron cases, and you would have seen a media release this morning. So we've got an additional 4 cases of Omicron variant detected in the community. That takes our total of cases to 10. So a public health update went out early this morning to advise people who have attended the Circuit Bar in Fitzroy and the Peel Hotel in Collingwood to quarantine and get tested if they were at those venues on the 10th of December. There were more than 450 people at the Circuit Bar, and there were more than 400 at the Peel. And so the quarantine period for those individuals begins from the last time of their exposure for 7 days. So if they were there until early hours of Saturday morning passed, they'll need to be in quarantine until Saturday coming. Of course, they're all required to be fully vaccinated and check in via the QR code. So we don't expect that there are unvaccinated individuals there, but we've provided advice on the 14-day requirement for unvaccinated individuals nonetheless. And we do thank everyone for their assistance. Really, thanks to that QR check-in, we've been able to contact almost all of those 850 plus patrons who've checked in, and they've been directly messaged, and there'll be further contact through the course of today. In relation to booster vaccines, and as the Minister has said, we're really wanting to emphasise just how important the boosters are. We've got over 720,000 individuals who are now due or eligible for their booster. Some 442,000 are now overdue, in large part because ATAGI has shortened that interval to the booster from 6 months to 5 months. So there are a few 100,000 additional individuals who've immediately become eligible. We've had 175,000 who've already come forward to get their third dose. And we are seeing an increase, about 25% in our walk-in traffic for that booster dose, and I expect there'll be tens of thousands of people in coming weeks who'll come forward for their booster dose. That demand is there, and now that people are eligible, I think we'll see a very significant increase. But a lot of people are eligible. I'd love to see each and every one of them get that booster dose for that additional protection. There are 10 pop-up vaccination clinics this week. They're across Casey, Whittlesea, Darebin, Melton, Maribyrnong, Melbourne CBD, and includes 4 on the weekend. The clinics will be at train stations in Footscray on December 16-17, so that's tomorrow and Friday, Epping Plaza on Saturday, December the 18th, and Homeless Support Services. They'll be offering boosters, but also first and second doses for those who still need them. And I do think the numbers will catch up very quickly. So everyone who's 5 months from their second dose are really urged to book an appointment to get that as soon as possible. I'll be due in late December. I'm already booked in, looking forward to that booster dose. We're especially wanting to flag it with those who are at greater risk of exposure, but also are working with more at-risk individuals, so those healthcare workers, those in aged care and disability support services. In addition, if you're wanting a Moderna booster, these will be available across our state-run hubs, administering the Moderna booster from Monday. It really is your best chance of avoiding serious illness. We know that with Omicron, there has been some vaccine breakthrough. There's been some breakthrough for those who have natural immunity from past infection, but there's good evidence, and it's getting stronger by the day, laboratory evidence and now epidemiological evidence, that getting or having had your booster shot will protect you even more from serious illness. That direct protection for those people who are vaccinated is critically important, and we know that the most at-risk individuals are older individuals, so I want to especially point that out for anyone who's due. For our hospital system, there are 365 currently in hospital, 85 active cases in intensive care, 46 of those on a ventilator, and an additional 44 cleared cases in ICU. For those in hospital yesterday, 73% were not fully vaccinated, and 58% didn't even have their first dose. For those in intensive care, 91% were not fully vaccinated, 88% hadn't had their first dose, so no vaccine at all. We're talking about the eligible population in ICU, so if vaccines did nothing, you would expect 92, 93% of people to be fully vaccinated. But we're seeing a tiny proportion who are fully vaccinated. Everyone else is not fully vaccinated or has just one dose. So if that's not a story of the protection of vaccines, I do not know what is. So please consider. I know, there are 330,000 people currently eligible, not yet having received their first dose. Our behavioural surveys tell us that maybe 150,000 of those are determined not to get a vaccine. They won't listen to me. They probably won't listen to their own family or anyone else. So be it. There's probably another 150 plus thousand who, for whatever reason, have not gotten around to it, are ambivalent. Again, if you don't want to listen to me, don't listen to me, but please talk to someone you trust, a trusted nurse, a trusted GP, a trusted pharmacist, a trusted family member who's received their vaccines, so that you can consider exactly what this means to keep you out of ICU. 3 people have lost their lives in the last 24 hours, in their 70s to 90s, and my thoughts go to their families and friends. Testing remains good. Over 77,000 tests processed yesterday. There's still plenty of capacity over the Christmas period. The state sites will continue to operate through that period. And overall, we had 1,405 new cases yesterday. 5 were overseas acquired. And as you may have seen, 1,360 cases in New South Wales announced today. So that's Omicron driven. I think we'll see a significant increase in our Omicron cases. The story globally is that it's doubling every 2 to 3 days. It's gone from a few hundred cases in South Africa to tens of thousands in a matter of a few weeks. Wherever it's seeded into Europe, it's gone from small numbers to hundreds and thousands of cases in a relatively short period of time. It's replacing the Delta variant. I think that's going to happen globally, but we'll continue to watch that. There's clearly some vaccine evasion, so people who are either naturally immune or have been vaccinated can get the Omicron variant, but it still provides that really important direct protection from serious illness. And for a variant that might get to tens of thousands of cases in many countries around the world, that is critically important for everyone who's eligible and able to get vaccinated. It means that we must consider our boosters. We don't know the full protection that boosters might provide, but it's going to be more than 2 doses. Again, the laboratory evidence of immune protection is very good, that boosters will provide some additional protection from Omicron as for other variants. It does mean that we should all be keen to see our kids vaccinated again for that direct protection. They're less likely to get severe illness, but it does increase their chances of staying in school through term 1. It increases their chances of protecting their close family members, including those who are most at risk. And all of those other measures beyond vaccination, masks are critically important. So we've got mandates. They remain in retail. It's strongly recommended in any other indoor setting. Ventilation, hugely important, whether it's home, your workplace or other settings. And there's been lots of work from Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions and others working with a whole bunch of sectors and industries on ventilation work, and I'm doing some more on that soon. And distancing remains important. So that's really it from me. Happy to hand over to Tom on boosters. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Is it just the one Omicron case linked to both at the moment? Or is there
That's right. No, it's a single individual.
And I guess what's pricked up your concern? Is it what's occurred in Newcastle? Has that got anything to do with it?
Oh, certainly, we've always known that crowded indoor places where people exert themselves, dancing, singing, shouting, whatever, are higher risk for transmission. So there's a risk of super spreading, and even though everyone is fully vaccinated and has that assurance that they're much, much less likely to get severe illness, the risk of transmission remains in settings like that.
There's some
I think we'll review as we always have. So the same will apply with Omicron. At the moment, with just a few cases and with every capacity to deal with those contact tracing requirements and those quarantine requirements for individuals, that will be our setting for now, but it's very early days. This is our first 10 cases of Omicron. We'll continue to review on a day-by-day basis.
Do we know where this case came from? They returned from overseas?
No, they've come from interstate.
Have you been able to figure out, I know there was the initial case in hotel quarantine of Omicron, but how Omicron got into the community? Was it seeded from a nest up from New South Wales? Or?
It appears to, yes.
They were the first two cases, Casey Ringbank last week?
Oh, I'd have to go back to those initial two cases. We have had some international arrivals that have made up the bulk of our Omicron cases. Most of those have tested in the first few days and been in quarantine. This most recent case was from interstate.
And with the high cases in New South Wales, are we looking at any border changes, or it's just a given that they're going to increase, we're going to increase?
I think that's the reality with Omicron. There's no proportionality to closing borders with New South Wales. We're going to see numbers here that will follow a similar trajectory, I suspect.
And today we saw the international borders rules ease. Is there been stepped up, sort of, I guess, monitoring at the airport where people are coming from, or the situation with people coming in that 72-hour period? Is that going to stay, or is that going to be reviewed at all? Could we go back to a scenario where there is no quarantine for backstrappers?
Again, always open to review. At the moment, 72 hours is our setting. It is an opportunity for people to get tested in that first 24 hours and, await their result. So often that's 72 hours anyway. We are continuing with a very intensive home engagement program. So there are 1,000 household visits every day. That's been really useful, and we've been able to support and identify people and seen very high compliance with quarantine. But that program in that first 72 hours is really important as well, and we're tracking those individuals as to whether they've been tested in that period of time. So they're all important measures.
High compliance?
High compliance.
Have there been any issues with it?
No, over 95% compliance for quarantine.
There's been a lot of talk about which formula protects you best against Omicron. Can you just explain to us, perhaps those who are out there with AstraZeneca in particular and had their 2 doses of that, where they stand in terms of protection against this?
I mean, it's clear that a kind of mix and match. If you've had AstraZeneca, as ATAGI recommends, your booster should be one of the mRNA vaccines, so Moderna or Pfizer. You can, in limited circumstances, have an AstraZeneca booster, but it's not the standard recommendation. But the booster boosts your immune response whether or not you've had Pfizer as your initial course or AstraZeneca. So the booster is really useful regardless. It does seem that 2 doses of Pfizer as an initial course might not wane as much against Omicron as AstraZeneca, but the booster brings everyone back up to a really good level of protection, at least in lab studies.
How much genomic sequencing are we doing? And is it possible there's much more Omicron in the community than we're aware of?
I don't think so. So we're doing the S-gene dropout failure screening, which is really good correlation with Omicron. That's not the same as full genomic sequencing, but it's a screening test. We're doing that on all of our swabs. So we've got a really good idea of those initial flags for Omicron. And then, of course, if any of those SGDF cases are confirmed, then they go on to full sequencing, and we're doing some full sequencing on others as well, including international arrivals.
Talking about what we've seen overseas with how quickly Omicron is spreading, what are the projections, what are the numbers showing you here in Victoria?
It's highly uncertain. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that it's a very steep trajectory wherever we've looked, but where it tops out is unclear. Exactly what might drive numbers back down is to be determined, but that's why all of the measures beyond vaccines really need to be in play, because the ability to transmit and the speed at which Omicron is transmitting is in part due to its ability, intrinsic ability, but part of it's due to that vaccine or immune evasion as well. So there's still a huge role for masks, for distancing, for ventilation, and can't emphasise that enough.
Another press conference like this, you speaking to us again, today there's a lot of Victorians who are probably going, oh, here we go again. Is that fair? Is that where we're at today?
Look, I empathise. I mean, I'm here because we've got new pandemic legislation, we've got new directions being made. That's our role to be accountable to exactly what those recommendations are. On the issue of Omicron, it's another punch that none of us wanted, but we've always rolled with the punches as we've needed to, and we have to face the reality. And being in denial about it will delay and defer being able to manage cases appropriately. So we need to lean in, and that's why mask mandates in retail have remained. That's why the recommendations around all of those other measures have been mine to make to the Minister.
Can you explain the removal of the vaccine mandate for weddings and funerals, why that's occurred and it's not occurring in hospitality?
Look, it's really the case that these are important occasions for people. There's a wellbeing element about being able to access them. We've had mandates that apply very stringently in those settings, but unvaccinated people have been able to attend, but with different caps. We know that people, really don't have a lot of discretion about going to weddings and funerals. There's a very strong desire for people to be there, and so we're really responding to that social wellbeing issue.
Is that the case with lifting it for children as well?
Yeah, I think that's a component about being able to participate more fully in normal social activities. The reality is that kids have been fantastic, 12 and above, in terms of getting their vaccine as well. So we've got high coverage, and having a few more unvaccinated kids won't be a huge change in the transmissibility risk.
Were you seeing situations where children were essentially being punished for decisions their parents have made on their behalf and were not able to engage?
Not that I'm personally aware of. I imagine it's happening to some degree. I would urge everyone to think about what it means for themselves and their children. I mean, it's not about me wanting to see kids excluded at all. I want them protected. I want them protected for themselves and for those around them.
Professor, across the border we've seen New South Wales relax their rules, remove some of their vaccinated economy requirements. Given that our borders are open, there's some level of consistency across the two economies. Is there a review point where you could recommend to the Minister to wind back over 18 vaccinated economy?
Look, I think all of these things are under review. They'll certainly be under review in the next period, but it's also for First Ministers and for Health Ministers to discuss with counterparts around those issues. They're broader than public health issues, the issues of consistency across jurisdictions. But
we've taken a different stance to New South Wales.
we have, but those conversations I'm sure will occur in the next review period, but they won't just be public health considerations.
Do you think that retail mandate in that short period we had was ever justified then, now that we're scaling up today?
Yeah, I think so. It was another driver. We wanted to make them safe. We wanted the incentive to be there, but we're recognising that we're going into a busy shopping period, that people feel that this is a normal part of engaging in community life, and again, with close to 95% of people who are eligible being vaccinated, it doesn't change the transmission risk too much to lower that, and with masks remaining mandated in those settings. Thanks all.